The press and the Down Beach Current were notified of this meeting, and a copy of the same was posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Would you please turn off all electronic equipment, and we'll stand for the flag salute. Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tom, would you call the roll, please?
Becker.
Here.
Blumberg.
Here.
Stahl.
Here.
Hello, is that better?
Our first item of discussion is whether we want to rescind Resolution 183 of 2012, which waived permit fees in reconstruction due to Hurricane Sandy. Who wants to take the lead on that?
Jim's got
Jim?
We've lost about $85,000 in revenue so far. If you guys want to waive the fees, continue to do it, that's fine with me. If you want to stop waiving fees, it's fine. I called the state today to see if we could possibly do both, waive some fees if somebody does come in with a permit for flood-related damages, that we could waive that fee, but also with anybody who comes in with a roofing or siding permit, they would be charged a fee. But I don't think we could have it halfway. We have to go with one way or the other way. So when I get a final determination from the state, if we can do it both, if we could waive fees for flood damaged properties, but then charge fees for other projects, then we'll see if we can do that.
Are you making a recommendation?
If you want to stop, it's up for discussion. We can talk about it with what you
Mayor,
feel.
I spoke with Rich Genie earlier this week about, I think it was $66,000 that we lost in January, and I guess 83 to this point. What about like till the end of February, like February 28th, any flood damaged properties would be free, and then, or just starting February 28th or March 1st, and just begin charging at that point. What do you think?
Maury?
I'm good with that. I think that Jimmy has the right idea. I think that we should leave it up to his discretion. If March or April or May, someone comes down, they can prove to him that they are affecting repairs due to flood-related damage, that Jimmy should have the option to waive their fee in that regard. Other than that, I think that we should institute our regular programs.
Anyone else have any comment? Scott?
No, how do you turn this on? Is that on now? Well, I just learned how to do this. I think it's a noble thing to do it that way. People are suffering and they've been harmed, but it should be flood-related damage, not if they decided to build a McMansion and waive that fee. No, I don't think that's it. So I think Jimmy has the proper discretion to determine that. And I support it 100%.
Okay.
What legal action do we have to do? Just
I think you would amend the ordinance, wouldn't you? Resolution.
If you want a resolution or it's in the minutes, I think you're fine with the minutes.
Okay. And we'll do that.
That covers it, I believe. Tom, you're perfect. How do you feel about that?
You're not on.
Oh, sorry, that's perfect.
So what's our time limit going to be on this? What would you say? Revisit this in 2 months?
How about,
3 months?
all right, 2 months, we'll revisit it, March, May, whatever.
Revisit when?
May.
After May 1st or,
Okay, May 1st.
yeah, May 1st?
So we're charging beginning March 1st for regular permits? Is that what we're doing?
March 1st, we'll charge for regular permits.
Okay.
Then they'll have to give me a letter stating that they were flood damaged, and then we'll have to review it and determine if that was. We're getting a lot of people who say they're flood damaged but aren't.
Well, on the other hand, and part of the fairness aspect is, the people who really need the insurance proceeds have been delayed for various reasons.
Correct.
And the people who didn't need the insurance proceeds but will ultimately get them, but can pay out of pocket in the meantime, they have benefited by this policy. So it's really a matter of fairness. So,
Okay.
but it's up to the governing body, put a time limit on it and revisit it if you think there's still people out there going for permits for flood damage after, what'd you say, April 1?
Yeah, let's do May 1.
May 1.
May 1.
Are you all right with May 1, Brenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Okay,
done.
thank you, Jimmy. Well, while we're over there, Jimmy, why don't you start department head reports, and we'll,
Mayor, you know, we had that meeting today up in Atlantic City. It sounds like the new maps will be, the working maps will be out by June 7th, is the way I read it, which is good news for the general citizens because they'll be able to determine what they will be working with. It sounds like the V zones are going to be changed. They're going to take into account the bulkheads, which I don't think they did. They didn't use the elevation of the bulkheads along the bay and seafront, the ocean fronts, for their wave action. I asked a question to a gentleman named Andy Reed. He is the map maker for FEMA, and he agrees that when they did the evaluations for the velocity zones in the 8 coastals, they didn't take into account of the bulkheads. And I asked him twice, I said, is the bulkheads a critical point for evaluating the velocity zones? And he said, yes, they were. So I think as soon as Ed is going to have to get together with that and determine what the elevations are, so we can forward that on to the map makers and get that done, I think as soon as possible, Ed. Because I think that's, in 30 days, I think, Mike, that's the way I read it, that they want that information in March. And I think that's one of our very, very critical points at this point to get us to move forward out of this velocity zone, because everybody in the velocity zone is having a problem with their construction right now. They don't know what to do. As you know, we're still doing a lot of permits. It's just trying to just keep our head above water. And I think that's my report.
thank you, Jim. For the public, there was a meeting this morning at Convention Hall, Atlantic City. I came out of the meeting with a better feeling about some compromise. I don't know, Jimmy, you were there, Brenda, you were there. Who else was there? Ed was there, Scott was there. Anybody have a feeling different than that? I felt much better. Is that correct? Yeah, please. One at a time.
You want to go first?
You go.
Yes, it was absolutely the best meeting we've had with FEMA. There has been a radical change in attitude by the FEMA people. When we met with them in Trenton 3 weeks ago, it was, our preliminary maps will be out in August or September, and we'll let you look at them then and you can have your comments. Now, and I think a lot of it has to do with the pressure that has been applied through a number of channels, whether it's the Seashore Coalition, which is Atlantic County, now Cape May County joined with us. The fact that we hired Stu Farrell, who is the acknowledged expert in this field. The fact that our county board of freeholders and executive have been involved. Our state representatives have been putting pressure on. Congressman Lobiondo's office set this meeting up for today in the convention center. We had other communities from north of Brigantine in Ocean County that called up and said, could we come down and see how you're doing this? Which, of course, was a little feather in our cap, because apparently they're not doing it this way up there. They're trying to meet them one city at a time. We're meeting them as all the seashore communities from Cape May Point through Brigantine, and there is strength in numbers. There were some major concessions today. When we walked in there, we were actually ready to go for bear, meaning we were going to go after example why the V zone is dead wrong, why the A coastal zone is in substantial error. There was not a need to do that. Very early on, and even before the meeting started, the officials from FEMA, and the two guys who are directly involved with creating the maps, Jeff Gangi from Dewberry and Andrew Reed, that was the big tall fellow, from URS. Those are the two who are working on these maps directly. They conceded there are some issues. They're not going to say they've made mistakes or done it wrong, but they are conceding that wave analysis is not complete. They're conceding that obstacles such as bulkheads have to be factored in, which brings me up to, it would benefit us to come up with our prevailing bulkhead elevation figures. They said that would be helpful in trying to reduce or eliminate the V zone and the A coastal zone on the bay side of the town. All in all, it was very a cooperative spirit. I guess we had how many people there, Mayor? I know you, Commissioner Talby were there, but I think,
Mr. Wahlberg, Mr. McLarnon, Mr. Galantino.
what would you say? I mean,
5.
do we have 100, were there 100 officials there?
Oh, at least.
At least 100. And so I think they're realizing now the dire consequences of designating significant portions of not only Margate, but all the barrier communities as V zones, or what they call also A coastal zones. Major concession, they've acknowledged that a 3-foot wave coming from the ocean is much more powerful than a 3-foot wave, the hypothetical wave coming from the bay side. There's a law, physics law, the scientists have it. Basically, it's about 25% of the power. Huge ramifications on how you calculate your velocity zone. The fact that we're a fully bulkheaded community is a significant factor, which we hope will lead to the elimination, if not the great reduction, of V-zone designation in our community. In turn, that causes we've been calling it the coastal A zone, to be limited. Again, severe ramifications, not only for construction factors, but also flood insurance factors. So all in all, I walked out of there. We did not get into a program of saying, here's where you're wrong, because they conceded it. And if we can build on this and have a cooperative attitude, we have engineers and local knowledge and people that can really supplement their efforts. And look, I acknowledge they're in a tough position too. They're getting it from all over because this is such an intense issue. But like I say, I'm somewhat guardedly optimistic that it's going to improve to our betterment, and that ultimately we'll see a reduction in that V zone. Eddie, if I'm saying anything wrong, or Jimmy, or Roger, you were there too, and there are things we should be doing to better ourselves. One of them will be our bulkhead system along Amherst Avenue. And what is the optimum elevation for bulkheads? Right now, our ordinance says 7.5 feet. It may behoove us to change that and go a little bit higher. What else? Can you add anything to that picture?
The only other thing, the concession they made, or they announced, and again, I would like to see this in writing, was the V-zone construction methods in the AO zone. They said that's, and we've heard this, but they came out clearly to state when the maps are used for insurance purposes, the AO zone is non-existent. So the areas where we had fear, which is a good portion of the town, where you're in that A with limited wave action, they're saying that we do not have to build to the V-zone standards, which are the pilings and all. So what our residents are already doing is right. You know, the houses on Amherst Avenue, the house on Winchester and Fredericksburg, that's what they're saying we can do. Okay, so that was a problem. That was something we worried about, because people that want to raise their houses in those AO zones didn't know which way they should raise them. So they're saying that it's strictly advisory. It's not, when the maps are used for rating for flood insurance, it's not a non-existent zone relative to the insurance rating. I want to see that in writing, but Jim, is that not what that's what I heard, which was very good.
Exactly what they said.
There's two zones, the A and the B.
The other piece, and I'll agree with Scott, I'm cautiously optimistic. In conversations after the meeting, the one gentleman alluded to that we're going to lose a lot of the V-zone, if not, you know, the majority of it, if not all of it. But he didn't go that far. But we do need to provide them with, and what I'm doing is, based on whatever data I have, I'm putting a map together with bulkhead elevations. I don't have a lot, though, to be honest with you. So, and I've asked my surveyor to figure out the least expensive way to go out there and shoot bulkhead elevations. You know, I've asked him actually to look at a Google Earth map and figure out where he could set up once and get the most elevation shots, so that I can come up with what the price would be to survey those. But it's something that will behoove us. It'll pay off in spades, I'm convinced. So he'll work that for me to find out. I'll talk to Rich, and if you want me to proceed with that, I'll get him down. He has, right now, I've told him to stay put, be ready to run the minute I tell him, so we can get this data. The one gentleman from Dewberry really said there's an urgency in getting this data, because in order for them to meet these accelerated dates which they have given, he said
And now
they
they're
need-
talking about June instead of
June for
August
the
or
map instead of
September.
August, yes.
So that's huge. That's 3 or 4 months sooner.
Exactly. So he's saying the more information I have, the sooner I have it. He can load that into the model with the information he already has. If he has to put his data in and then come back and load our data in later, it slows things up. So it's not just to us, to all the communities.
Right.
Atlantic City is doing the same thing. Brigantine, I know, is also doing that.
Hey, Ed, do you remember the conversation about the money available to do the bulkheads? If we wanted to, they said there was some money available if we needed to have bulkheads replaced. It was brought up in a little bit of detail. There's there's a possibility of the hazard mitigation money being used for that. There's so many different little pots of money now coming out every day that may be able to be used for, for public bulkheads. Right.
And we've also asked for clarification from FEMA on which money can actually be utilized by the city for private bulkheads. Okay, so there is money there. I don't know which program it is, but I know there is money for bulkheads.
And my takeaway was that we're more concerned about the bay. I mean, there was some discussion about an engineered beach to make the beach, to make them less flood prone. But I think for us in Margate, we're mostly concerned with the bay. And the FEMA said that for Margate, the working maps will be available by June 7th, as Jim said. So
What you said.
maybe we could look into some of that mitigation money, but not do anything until that is a definite, because they did say that if you can wait, please do until we have the final
So we know
codes.
exactly what
Yeah.
we're working towards, so.
And how long do you think it will take you to get ready to go?
I could have I could have my surveyor on the street Monday, and you're probably talking 3-4 days worth of work. Again, I've asked him to look at locations, strategically placed where he could shoot the most without moving, because the less setup time we have, the quicker we can get it done.
We have, through the years, accumulated, and Jimmy would know this, and maybe Roger McLaren would get involved with this. I know we have documents that show elevations of fairly recently constructed bulkheads. Because I know I went through the building department at one time, a number of years ago, involving my bulkhead, and saw them. That is invaluable information now, because they said if we'll furnish them our elevations, they'll factor it in the V-zone aspect as it applies to Margate. So that's important. That's very important to do. The other thing would be, take along Amherst Avenue, for instance. We're going to probably have to relook at, and I think our planning board has started this process. Is that correct, commissioners, or anybody know? Are they looking at raising our minimum bulkhead height? Because I think on the bay side, we're 7.5 feet. Which is actually, as I heard from talking to these other communities, we're actually pretty high up compared to a lot of other towns, which I found surprising, but we are. But it may also behoove us to go higher.
I think if we do replace that, or whomever does replace that, we should definitely go higher, but wait until we get the FEMA information.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I've talked to a few planning board members, and there's been discussion about back deck elevations going higher, bulkheads going higher, because we have a number of Bayfront residents that have come in for variances for that exact reason. So, you know, it would definitely make sense, the higher the better, because the maps will never go lower. They're always, you know, now, they're not going to do this, they, probably in our lifetime, this is the only time they're gonna do these maps. But the next time they do them, it's gonna go up again.
Yeah.
So, and it'll take 20, 30 years for the bulkheads to catch up. But it is something we should look at, and we probably would get some credit towards our community rating system standing with, by raising the Back Bay bulkheads.
Thank you, guys. All right, let's move on.
I just have a question for Tom and for Rich. If we decided, could we authorize Ed to proceed with the survey under his existing contract? Or would we need a T&M, yeah, I think I heard him say 4 or 5 days. Would we need a T&M resolution, separate resolution, or could we authorize him to proceed under his existing contract?
Under engineer, are we live?
The answer is yes for both of us.
Oh, okay, so I would propose, Mayor and Commissioner Talby, that we authorize him to get started on that, understanding that it sounds like there's a sense of urgency, that if we're only talking 4 or 5 days worth of work, that we should unleash him.
I'd feel better. We have an engineer/planning meeting next Tuesday at 11. I'd rather discuss it there first, and
But you can, Ed, could you come up with a dollar number by then?
Yeah, I'll have a dollar number tomorrow, to be honest with you.
I guess you
I was
could
hoping
then.
to have it today before I left my office, but I didn't talk to Chip, my chief surveyor. And what I have Joe Johnson doing right now is just pulling whatever data we have from our bulkhead permits, planning board jobs that are on the water, planning board reviews, and whatever other data we have. But there's a big hole, in all honesty. It's probably 20% of the bulkheads I can account for, that's about it.
because we really can't do anything anyway until we get the height from FEMA, because it wouldn't behoove us and wouldn't be wise to move forward. I mean, we can do the survey, but we can't actually
Right, and that's what
do the
we're looking at, trying to
Yeah.
get the survey
Yeah.
done so we're ready,
No, they want it. They want it.
right?
They want our
They want-
current
They want
data.
it
they
within-
want the survey.
They want the
What we
survey
want-
within
Yeah.
30 days, I think they said. Is that correct?
Yeah, but the gentleman, like I said, I spoke to him.
That is correct. He said March,
Yes,
by March.
but when he spoke
Anyway.
after the meeting,
Are you okay with that?
he was
It's
a
just
little
survey.
bit concerned with that date,
Because-
so.
Well,
All right.
I mean, even sooner you need it.
they need a meaning sooner. Now,
Yes.
here, and you can average it out. But he did say, we did not factor in height of bulkheads. So if we can show them that our bulkheads are pretty high in Margate, which I think we can, that may help tip the scale in our favor to get rid of this V-zone designation.
Because what he explained was they use what's called LiDAR, which is a very detailed radar, aerial radar. But LiDAR will not pick up, it doesn't pick up the bulkhead itself. It's-
Is it technology that's under the plane that they shoot down and it bounces back up? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it just,
Yeah.
it sends down,
A
and it just,
topical-
it's almost like a
That's right.
sonar type stuff. But it's very accurate, he said within 12 centimeters, so it's accurate, but this much could make a difference. But what he said was it may not pick up, it'll pick up the water, it'll pick up the land next to it, but it may not pick up the bulkhead that's sticking up 2 feet, because you're still dealing with an aerial survey, so 18 inches of width does not show clearly. So that's why their concern is they may pick up the land at 6 and the water at 2, but that bulkhead could be at 7.5, and they wouldn't have that. So that's why they're asking for as much.
Yeah, that hypothetical 3-foot or greater wave coming in from the marshes on a land breeze, they never factored in it would hit a bulkhead and dissipate its energy.
Right.
And that's huge in our favor.
And what's
So-
scary is, if that bulkhead makes that wave 2.9 feet, you know, we're getting into little increments here that will change it, will eliminate the V zone, so.
All right.
Anyway.
We
not to
get
belabor
very,
it.
very technical on this.
I have a question for Frank. Frank, do we have the expertise in-house, the equipment, the surveying equipment? I know we have a new hire. Do we have the expertise in-house to do this work without the assistance of Mr. Wahlberg?
Somebody's got to go off. Bang.
As far as I know, no. We don't have the
Okay.
equipment.
I just wanted to make sure of that.
Why don't we do this? Ed, why don't you prepare, get us a number, seeing as the planning board meeting is next Thursday? Is it Thursday? All right. And we'll run it by them, and then we'll move forward. How's that? Okay? Thank you. You all done? Chief Wilson.
We started attending the business association meetings regarding the summer events, and we're starting our preparation. Other than that, everything's good.
Maureen?
We're fine. Everything's good. Rolling along.
Fred, do you have a microphone?
We have a new microphone speaker system that was installed today. Hopefully it's working better than the other one.
Roger? Nothing to add. Tom?
Ditto, nothing to add.
You wanna go now, or you wanna wait till the end? Scott, you have anything else?
Yes, I do.
Damn.
If you'll remember, totally different topic, but still has to do with bulkheads. We had discussed at last meeting, the beachfront owner at 114 South Rumson Avenue wants to acquire the 7.5 by roughly 80-foot long strip of land that is between his property line and the bulkhead. And we have come up with a game plan as to having that property owner, instead of buying it, building our replacement bulkhead for that area of the city in lieu of a private sale for an undersized piece of property. I have a synopsis here by our assessor. This is confidential. I don't think we have to go into a closed session right now. I would like to pass this off to the elected officials, and this is just another step. Tom, I think you have one of these? Did you? No, I do not. You got, pass this down. Eddie, I'll give you this one. You can have it. But the bottom line is, we're moving forward with the concept of let this beachfront property owner, not only the 80 feet that the city owns in front of his property, but the 100-foot that wraps around, and then the 40 or 50? 50-foot at the end of Rumson Avenue, which is, those bulkheads are really bad. They're beat up. You're talking about $200,000+. So instead of the city bonding or paying for that, we have this strip of land that not only this owner, but others as well, have used this property forever as a part of their yard, but technically the city owns it. Now this property owner came forward to us and said, I want to buy this strip from you. Which was, I mean, he could have just kept his mouth shut and just continued the way it was. So I think it's a golden opportunity for the city. I want you to study this and think about it, and we'll get back to them and see if you aren't interested in some kind of a swap where, just like we did in some other locations in the city, we allowed them to build the new bulkhead under our engineer's direction, under our engineer's specifications. They build it, we give them the 7-foot strip.
Scott, I think he would have had to come to us or Shay if they wanted to repair their bulkhead, because if it's technically not on their property, this would have come out eventually anyway, I think. Am I wrong?
Well, I guess he could put a brand-new bulkhead landward of our city bulkhead and just do it on his property. I mean, that would be possible. It's kind of asinine, but they could have done that.
If we decide to grant him to give him this property, and he does the bulkhead, Andy, I'm sure there will be a reassessment so they'll be paying more in property taxes because they've got more property?
That's an excellent point. You're talking about 600-plus square feet that right now is not taxed. It's used, but it's not taxed. So, yeah, that's an added bonus. But you have to really give this some thought because, you know, there are other properties we may want to follow this format and apply that to them as well. These are labeled attorney-client privilege. We do not want to let the other side know what we're thinking. Dollar and cents wise, I want you to think about it. We can make this public in due time, but right now, this is for your consideration. I think we're on the right track here. This will work, and it can save the city a lot of money. That's my thinking on it.
Anything else, Scott?
Tom, there was one other thing we wanted to talk.
Did you talk to them about the potential executive session?
I did mention that to the mayor, yes. There is an issue regarding a bid for landscaping. I do not want to talk about that publicly. There is the potential of litigation. I think if we're going to talk about it, let's put it into an executive session. How would you like to proceed? Do you want to do it today, Tom? Do we have time?
What's the time frame?
We are running a little short on time. We have 60 days after the receipt of bids, which was about 40 days ago. So we're running low on time, not to mention the landscaping season is right around the corner, so it would be better today rather than later.
All right. Well, why don't we save that till the end? That way you can get rid of all the other items on workshop, and then either we move from the room or the public moves from the room, and we'll go into this. And it is potential litigation. Tom, you agree?
Yeah, you could put it on the end of the very end of the regular meeting agenda, and that way.
Oh, yeah, you could do it
Yeah.
then too. Yes, of course.
Why don't we go as
Let's
far
do it
as
that
we
way.
can?
Let's do it that
Okay,
way.
is that all right with you, Tom?
Sounds good.
That way the public's not inconvenienced.
Shut my mic off.
That's good.
Thank you, Scott. Rich?
Good afternoon. I'd like to read a statement into the record. I'll make a copy available for the clerk so they can have it exactly. And I'm also, in the interest of the public, going to make it available at the end of the meeting for the public as well. That way they won't have to Oprah anything, and they'll have it for us. The statement concerns negotiations, labor negotiations, in this case with the local FMBA. And on your regular agenda, there is a resolution that I recommend that you adopt that would authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a contract with FMBA. The statement that I'm going to read into the record that I'm going to make available to the public at the end of the meeting summarizes, in effect, a memorandum of agreement of what the contents of change are into the actual contract itself. The contract itself has been going on for many, many years, as most labor negotiations are, and they are succeeding contracts, and therefore we're up to about 60 pages in the contract. But most of it doesn't change. And in this case, it's the same as usual. The changes are largely the economic changes as they relate to the contract. So the statement reads as follows. Commissioners, I am pleased to advise that we have completed negotiations with the Firemen's Mutual Benevolent Association Local 41 for a local contract for years 2013, 2014, and 2015. It is expected that with retirements averaging one per year, the cost of this agreement will be sustainable for years to come. For example, the 2013 fire budget expenses for the FMBA compensation package is projected to be flat because of other monetary givebacks and one retirement. A main feature of the agreement for the city is that all new firefighters will begin at a salary $2,722 less than a new firefighter salary in 2012. And more importantly, will take 9 years to reach the top step instead of 4 years. Therefore, a fifth-year firefighter on the former scale was paid $83,462, while a fifth-year firefighter on the new scale is listed at $60,000, a savings of $23,462. During the first 10 years of employment, the city will save $118,695 for each new firefighter hired. Because turnover average exceeds 1 per year, the savings will continue progressively and are projected to be in excess of $1 million within the next decade. Additional future savings will be realized through reductions in the longevity schedule for new employees. No longevity will be paid until the 10 years of service, and thereafter at a rate 0.5% less than on the current contract. This will result in an additional savings of $10,432 for each new firefighter hired over the first 10 years of the contract. The vacation schedule for new employees hired after January 1st, 2013 is also amended. The net result will be a reduction of 16 vacation days during the first 10 years of the new firefighter's career. At an average overtime rate of $60 per hour, this could save overtime pay of $600 to $840 per shift for the 16 shifts for each new firefighter. The FMBA also agreed to eliminate sick leave attendance incentives whereby members with either limited or no sick days taken were rewarded in the past with payments yearly up to $1,100. They were previously paid not to use sick days and then paid when they retired for unused sick days. This will save an additional several $1,000s yearly. Finally, the FMBA agreed to reduce yearly clothing allowance for all firefighters from $1,050 to $350, a savings from 2013 forward of $700 per firefighter, or more than $22,000 per year, or $66,000 over the 3-year life of the contract. What was in it for the firefighters? Of course, this is negotiations, and there is a give and take. While we met our objectives, so did they. They received more in base pay than they would have through arbitration, the 2% cap. This contract provides for 3% for 2013, 2.5% for 2014 and 15. The extra base pay helps firefighters at retirement for pension purposes. Essentially, they elected to shift pay from an allowance to base salary, and in return, we gain a new longer wage scale, saving taxpayers well into the future. The amount of extra base pay equates to about $54,000 over the life of the contract for all 33 firefighters. That is $27,000 in 2013, $13,500 in 2014, and $13,500 in 2015. The amount of clothing allowance lost is $21,700 per year for all 31 firefighters, or a total of over $60,000. In summary, the city will save in excess of $128,000 in base pay and longevity during the first 10 years of employment for each new replacement firefighter. The city will save projected overtime in excess of $10,000 for each new firefighter hired because of reduced vacation days totaling 16 within the first 10 years. The city will immediately save a projected $5,000 per year in sick leave incentive pay eliminated in the contract for all firefighters. The city will immediately save a minimum of $21,700 per year in clothing allowance paid to all firefighters. The city will pay an extra $54,000 over 3 years in base pay that might otherwise have been required through arbitration, but likely saves a projected $15,000 in legal and accounting fees required if you go to arbitration. The extra $54,000 in base pay is more than balanced by the $66,000 in immediate clothing allowance savings. This contract negotiation was productive, professionally conducted, and a true example of what the law intended, a fair process for labor and management contract settlement. I congratulate President Tom Scherer and the Local 41 MBA leadership and the management negotiating team of Chief Anthony Tabasso and CFO Lisa McLaughlin for their ample assistance. I recommend this contract for approval at today's commission meeting, as it is in the best interest of the Margate citizens and it's fair to the firefighters as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you for a job well done. Anything else, Rich?
That's all.
Lisa?
One thing I want to report on is the item that came out in the news a couple of days ago regarding Margate receiving $1.8 million from FEMA. I've been receiving several questions about that. I've called the New Jersey State Trooper who assists in administering the funds, and he has not heard anything about that. The funds will be automatically deposited into our account, which they have not been received as of yet. And my best guess as to what they were referring to is probably FEMA or the state released information regarding submissions by various municipalities as to costs that have been submitted to date. And Margate, as I reported several meetings back, had submitted a total of $2.4 million pertaining to the debris removal costs, and 75% of that would be the $1.8 million that was announced in the news. If I receive additional information, I certainly will keep you advised, as it's been received. Continuing to, submit additional costs with that. And I do ask, especially Ed and everyone, I'm constantly asked for cost estimates and what our plans are for renovations for various municipal property, even if they're not implemented at this time. If you do have estimates or any ideas, please submit them to me so I could send them to FEMA, because we can still submit that and it's adjusted, if and when it's finalized. So please just keep that in mind regarding anything, bulkheads. I also want to remind everyone, including department heads, to keep track of the time that you spend regarding anything storm-related, because we do receive reimbursement for administrative costs. So just make sure that that's not overlooked as well. On the agenda is the second reading of ordinance number 3 for our emergency. This is the second reading. Our other ordinances that were introduced previously had the second reading at our last meeting. The reason for the delay in this is due to the nature of this being pertaining to the emergency. The state has allowed us to waive the 5% down payment fee, so we needed to wait for approval from the local finance board, which in fact we did receive. So we received slightly a savings of $47,000, being that fee was waived. Met with Rich, Tom, and Maury yesterday or the day before, forgive me, and regarding the budget. We had a very good discussion regarding the budget, and there were a couple minor changes which I have forwarded to Leon, and I have asked him to send us a revised budget draft via email tomorrow. Once that is received, it will be forwarded to the 3 commissioners. I think so far we have a good budget. I think we'll be able to keep our local tax rate flat, if not maybe a slight reduction. So you should be expecting that tomorrow. And also tomorrow, we're expecting to receive our revised bond rating from Standard & Poor's as a result of the potential refunding of our 2006 bonds. We currently have a AA- rating, and we had a very good conversation with Standard & Poor's, with Rich and Tom and our financial advisor, and Leon Costello. And in spite of everything around the state with various municipalities and the state itself receiving a downgrade in its rating, I'm confident that we may be able to improve our rating. We do have a pretty good story to tell, especially when our ratables have a net increase after everything being considered of over $15 million. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Frank?
Yeah, we're still dealing with Sandy. We're right now putting our playgrounds back together. The one at the pavilion was hit pretty hard. We will get that back together within the next week. Our Public Works building, where we store all our equipment, has been torn apart for remediation, and we're dealing with that. We can't even go into the building, but we are working out of garages. We're still out on the street. We've had about 6 or more utility problems out there, water pipes breaking and repairs to be made. And we also dealt with the minor ice we had over the weekend. Hopefully this weekend we won't be hit with anything, but we are on top of it. That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Chief DeVessa.
Things are going well in the fire department. As you know, we're nearing completion, the end of our construction phase at Station 1. Things are going well. As I'm sure Ed will add to, a punch list has been sent, and those things are being accomplished as we speak by the contractor. I'm not sure time-wise. It's a few weeks out at least, but things are moving quickly. For the public, operationally, it's never changed our operations as a department for fire protection, EMS protection, or any kind of rescue. So things are going well. Also, I'd like to add, being in the job for 35 years and being a part of many contract committees for our local union, it was a pleasure to be part of the team this year with Rich, Lisa, Tom, and all the FMBA members. It was a truly, to me, it was amazing how amiable and quick and good that things went. And I'm extremely proud of my personnel. Very professional, and I am very happy about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Ed, do you have anything else?
Just a few things. At the next meeting, we should be able to award well number 8. We've already had the contracts drawn up. The contractor has executed them, but the city has not. So as soon as we award that at the next meeting, we can get well number 8 started. And it's going to be a tight time frame to get it for our April demand cycle that starts, but we will have that done. All the applications, that we had talked about previously are included in the one application was or were various repairs to bulkheads, as well as a section of bulkhead on Sumner, the actual return. So I am waiting for FEMA to give me the approval on that report. The money is in the bond ordinance, and at that point, I would suggest that we look at going out and putting that out to bid for that section. It's probably 100-foot length. It was beaten up pretty bad from the storm. It's still there, but it leans to one side. So we'll talk about that as soon as we hear from FEMA. The firehouse, again, they're moving on the punch list. They're back on the job again. They have, instead of just their subs, the contractor's actually there. So things are getting accomplished, and it's looking, if you have the opportunity, go take a look. It's really turned out very nicely. So, and the handicap access bulkhead penetrations are complete. So we're in good shape. Now, there is another round of applications that are due the 8th of March. I'm suggesting that we we just continue the program. So it's worked so far. Put the application in for we have to decide on and maybe next Tuesday we could talk about which street ends we want to. I'll bring the map so we can look at trying to fill in the gaps as we go. There was a meeting with the county, I guess, last week. For some reason, the application, the time between the meeting and the application submission is very tight this year, so we can do that. And the emergency bulkhead repairs at Kenyon and Lancaster, contractor is mobilized there, he has the material. He was going to remove the light post, but I spoke to Ken Mosca from Atlantic Electric, and I spoke to him yesterday, and he grabbed his engineering people, they ran right over there. They are going to pull the poles and replace and put them back. So they would rather that our contractor doesn't touch those light poles. So hopefully that'll get accomplished by the beginning of next week, and our guy can get in a week probably on each bulkhead, and he should be done. The fencing by the, down at the Washington Avenue Park, we're probably looking at having, if the weather cooperates, beginning of next week it'll be complete. The contractor's going to work over the weekend, and hopefully, we're hoping it'll be complete by, the beginning of next week. And I think that is, that's it. Oh, the Union Avenue Union Avenue School here, the asbestos removal contracts have been executed. Spoke with the contractor yesterday. I'm hoping to get them on site next week sometime to get started, so we can get those rooms cleaned up. Very minor, no issues. The one classroom has its own access door, very simple. The other one, they'll maintain a negative pressure, so it won't interrupt operation here at City Hall.
I can't tell you how many times I've almost accidentally walked into one of those two rooms.
Yeah, so
Good, thank you.
the good news is we'll be able to utilize those rooms sooner than later.
Good. Thank you, Greg. Maury, you do anything?
No, just Ed, to remind you that you're going to try and get me a sketch of the parking for the playground.
I apologize. I meant to bring that with me. What I did was I took the site plan, we cordoned off, out in the playground there are two people entranceways. The thought is just go straight across there. You'd be able to save the baseball field, you'd be able to save the basketball courts. You'd still be able to put somewhere between 25 and 30 cars in. So,
Again, if you could just pencil me a sketch so I can look at it. Okay.
Thank you. Brenda?
I have nothing.
Okay.
Can I ask Ed one question? Ed, on that layout, is the potential exist that if we have a nor'easter or hurricane, that we could do something to pit 200 cars or 150 cars back in there again, or is that going to be?
no, I mean, the new piece of fencing, if you put vehicle access gates, they can go in and park on those two,
Okay.
where they always have.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a problem. The only other thing, I had one other thing. There was an email that was passed yesterday from John Lamy, and it's in reference to the Community Development Block Grant DR Action Plan. Okay, and what that is, apparently, as everyone has seen, there's $1.6 billion coming down for Community Development Block Grant money related to Sandy. And what they're asking for is just, they're creating their action plan, and they're asking for us to give them input, things that we need, okay? Now, we had very little, if no, infrastructure damage during the storm. We were very fortunate. However, we did have bulkhead damage, and we have asked for funding on that, but it would behoove us, I think, to contact John Lamy tomorrow morning, or send him an email and say that the items that we would like considered would be both beach and bayfront bulkhead replacement, okay, for both damage and mitigation. Also, could any of the money be used to provide residents financial assistance in raising their homes? Which, in the past, they have used it for rebuilding, rehabilitation of structures, of residential structures. So we should ask him to throw that in on Margate's behalf. So
Is that something that you're automatically applying for us for, or do you need direction or to apply for that?
It's something that, it's something that we should do, that I could do or Tom can do.
My thing was, you have to follow up. I think the governing body needs to tell you yes, no, go, because I think they just
Yeah,
sent it
if we-
yesterday and the deadline's tomorrow.
I guess I'm asking for your
Yeah,
approval, is
exactly.
that, if you agree. These are just my suggestions, based on John's email and comments and conversations I had with him, but, it's more or less, we're in the planning stages, but what I've been told is, once this money starts flowing, it's going to flow fast, so we need to be on
Yeah,
top of it.
I say definitely move
We should be
forward.
in the pipeline there, yeah.
Okay.
Maury, all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you. You
That's
got
it?
I have a couple things. Before we go to public comment, first I'd like to thank Fred. He did an awesome job. I hope the people in the back of the room can hear now. The new sound system seems to be working great, Fred. Thank you for that. I'd also like to thank Rich and Chief Tabasso and all the members of FMBA 41. I sort of didn't take part in the process, but I knew what was going along, and I just want to thank all of you. I'm proud of each and every one of you, and thank you for that. One last thing, I guess it's time for us to open a dialogue, and that dialogue is, where do we go on city properties? What are we going to do with Union Avenue School? What are we going to do with the Historical Society, City Hall? All those things. I'm asking that you start to think about that, and maybe perhaps at the next meeting, we can take your information and your input, and we'll start looking at that. And that's all I have, and we'll now open for public comment.
Sewell, 22 West Drive. Following up on the comments of the CFO regarding a net increase in ratables, everything I have read tends to indicate that that may be true in the short term, but in the long term, due to substantially increased federal flood insurance rates, it will essentially depreciate all properties throughout Margate in a very dramatic, if not catastrophic and cataclysmic manner. And I believe that this commission has a fiduciary duty to the taxpayers to be ever vigilant in how money is being spent, and to remind those people who are not abiding by the 2% state cap on pay raises, et cetera, that this is a very serious problem. And it should be addressed at the Board of Estimate meetings, which is going to come in March or thereabouts, because we can't be having 25% above that cap and not addressing the serious issue. If the mayor may recall, on the last issue of the current, there was a quarter-page ad run by the Margate School Board and the Margate school system encouraging non-mandated pre-K applicants. And I think that's simply a luxury that we can't afford, despite what the President of the United States urges as an unfunded, non-funded mandate. It simply can't be had. And I think it's imperative for this commission to give the school board and the school superintendent a heads up that this type of fiscally irresponsible behavior will be addressed at the Board of Estimate hearings. Because you're going to simply not only drive young families out of Margate, because if the federal flood insurance is steep enough, they won't be able to cut that monthly mortgage nut. But you're also going to drive the senior citizens out as well and drive property values down in the process. So you can take comfort in what the CFO has said, but the long-term picture, for those who are looking at this in a very careful way, in fact, yesterday, Assemblyman Jeff Van Drew noted, Mayor, 30 seconds, Mayor, we can wrap this up in at least 30 seconds, that the FEMA federal flood insurance rates may easily hit the $30,000 a year mark, which will far exceed the cost of most mortgages. And of course, Assemblyman Chris Brown talks about property values being valueless. So I think we should begin to weigh these considerations very carefully and begin a greater program of fiscal austerity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Anyone else?
Sharon Simon, 424 North Thurlow Avenue. Again, I'd like to thank Jim, Scott. I gotta call you Larry, but your name's not Larry. Everybody involved in the FEMA, you guys have done a tremendous job for us. I want to thank Commissioner Blumberg for last meeting suggesting that we pay for Mr. Farrell, I believe that was his name. Dr. Farrell, excuse me, tell him my apologies, please. And for both Scott and Maury to convince the mayor and Commissioner Tobby to go ahead and go forward with that. It was worth every $9,500 or whatever, few $1,000s we had to spend on that. Maybe I misunderstood Commissioner Tobby. I'm a little confused. Something about we're more concerned with the bay than the ocean in terms of the V-zone. Could someone clarify that?
That's where it's affected the most.
More so.
They're on the bay now instead of on the ocean. That's where they originally were years ago. They've been on the ocean. But now they're on the bay, and that's where we're testing.
Okay.
Internal city areas that are V-zone.
But what I thought I heard also was that because of the bulkheads, if they're taken into account, that will also help the ocean side in terms of elevations? Only the bay side? And the ocean. Okay. I was just trying to make sure I understood. And as far as doing the study to get the information together, I'm not sure why that's going to the planning board. We're not really approving anything. It sounds like they're willing to work with us, and the sooner we can get them the information, the better it is for them to work on it, and it's in our best interest. And we're not really approving making any changes at this point. We're just doing surveys. Is that correct?
Correct.
What we were talking about is just surveying the elevation data of the Back Bay bulkheads so that FEMA has, or their consultants have accurate elevation data to plug into their model and in hopes that it eliminates the V-zone.
So I'm not sure, what's the approval process? Why are we going to the planning board with that? Because I guess that would mean then we have to wait to the next commission meeting to approve it, for him to do survey information we have to get to them? Could somebody?
I don't think we're waiting for the planning board. I think that maybe that's a misunderstanding. I heard that there's a planning board meeting, but I don't think I think what I heard us is that maybe we're going to wait until Tuesday until Mr. Wahlberg has a proposal that he can present to Rich and to Tom. That's what I heard. Is that correct, Mike and Brenda? Brenda, is that correct?
Yes.
So we don't need another meeting to approve it?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. And one last quick thing. We hired attorneys to do negotiations. Were those attorneys part of the fireman's contract? What were they hired to do? Who were they working with?
Go ahead, Rich, please.
We did hire an attorney last year to help us with negotiations, and they are working with the PBA negotiations because the PBA has chosen to have an attorney or a professional represent them. The fire department did not choose that, so we kept the level down to a lower level. And without making any further comments with respect to doing it otherwise, I would just say that one of the advantages of doing it the way we just did it with the fire department is that there's a great understanding by all the people that sat at the table of what the words are supposed to mean. And my experience shows when that happens, there's much less chance for grievances and costly litigation when you administer the contract. So what Chief Tabauso was referring to is the healthy discussions that were sometimes heated, sometimes not, but mostly to gather better understanding. So to answer your question, there were no attorneys involved, other than, I briefed our own solicitor toward the end. Thank you.
See, Scott, see what happens when you get the lawyers involved. just not,
Always much better.
it's much, it's not as healthy.
It's not soup
not
unless
as
the
healthy.
lawyer's involved.
And I just want to say, I look forward to hearing Mr. Deeney come speak at the Margate Concerned Citizens Group tomorrow. I understand you're not? Oh, he's not coming? Oh, okay. They had put an email out, you were coming, and announced it, and I didn't hear otherwise, so.
It's an error.
I'm sorry?
Apparently, that's an error. I work here, and my statements will be made here.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone
Mayor,
else?
may I just put something on the record, too? If you like the work we did with the FEMA, then you're going to love this, because Dr. Farrell's bill, and I give Commissioner Talby credit on this, and Commissioner Blumberg and the mayor, all three of them, we were able to go and engage him with the understanding that if Margate had to, Margate would pay this, what was it, Eddie, $9,500, right? But I am told by our chairman of the Freeholder Board, what is Frank's name? Frank Formica, that Atlantic and Cape May County are going to split. Is that right, Brenda?
What I heard was, I spoke with the county executive this morning. I heard that they were each contributing enough, and then the balance was going to be the municipalities, and we're going to pitch in some too. I think it was 500, and then the counties were picking up the balance.
So it's been a unified effort, and I mentioned this before, but I don't think Monmouth or Ocean County are responding the way that Atlantic and Cape May County have, which is to our benefit, because it looks like they're going to maybe back off a little bit.
It's also to our benefit that Frank Formica lives in Margate, and that John Amadeo lives in Margate, and, you know, it's helpful. Thank you.
Never hurts.
For the record, Sharon, Mr. Formica lives in Atlantic City now. Yes. We lost a very good resident.
Good afternoon, Tom Sheriff, President of the FMBA Union, Margate. I just want to say, publicly say thank you to Rich and Lisa for all the help and negotiations we went through. We went up and down a few times, but we hashed everything out pretty well. And our committee, who are here tonight, is Mike Scher, Mike Palmer, and Jim Hiltner. Very big help from our whole committee. So I just want to say thank you, appreciate your time, and glad it worked out well.
Tom, thank you guys for all you do. We're really proud of you.
Thanks.
Last chance, anyone else?
May I say something real quick? My neighbor needed the rescue department last week, and you guys were there, I think 2.5 minutes, and you were wonderful with her. Thank you. Pembroke Avenue.
Steve Warner, 103 North Sumner. I'd like to congratulate the firemen on their contract. I think you a well-deserved raise, and I also like to thank you for taking into consideration the taxpayer, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Good job.
Thank you, Steve. Last chance, folks. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mayor, one other thing we didn't report. Frank's got on the parking lot. Frank's guys took the sidewalk out, the curb, and as soon as the weather permits, we can get the apron poured for the parking. So the issue will be resolved sooner than later.
Thank you. Is there a motion to close public comment?
I'll make a motion that we close public comment.
Second.
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Blumberg?
Yes.
Ms. Talby?
Yes.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Mr. Becker?
Yes.
Mr. Blumberg?
Yes.
Ms. Talby?
Yes.
Thank you all. We're going to take a very short break and